Good afternoon, YouTube. Hope everybody's having a good day. Home Handyman here. I got a request on the forum saying, hey, can you show us just a real simple way to transfer a picture, a diagram, a template off onto a piece of wood? And I said yes. Okay, the first thing that you do is you can do a Google search. You can put in, I think for this one I did Western templates. I found this one, I downloaded it onto my computer, then I used Posterize it. And I'll put it in the caption again. It's on both of my previous videos. I called up the image. I said, hey, I want it on one sheet of paper, and I sent it to my printer. That's how I got this. Then I got a piece of scrap wood, you'll see right here, and I want a border. So I went up 1 inch and I made a mark, and I used my square, and I drew that line over. Then I found the middle of the board, and I drew a line straight up and down. Okay, then I got my picture and I put the midpoint here and here, and I lined up those marks. Then I slid a piece of carbon paper right under it, just like this, and I taped the corners. Now I don't have to tape all four. It's going to stay put right where it is right now. And I've already shown you how it'll go through onto the wood, but I'm going to trace the whole thing out. So I'll pause the video, let me trace it out, I'll come right back and I'll show you what we're all around this. Now what you want to do before you take this off is lift everything up and take a look at it. And the question is, did you get everything on there? Yep, I did. So now I'm going to take all this off, get it to the side, and we'll set up and we'll make some more borders and we'll get ready to router. Hang on just a moment and I'll be right back. One side note here before we go on, what you can do with carbon paper, I've used this, you can see, maybe a whole bunch of times. I fold it over, the carbon on top of the carbon, and I just go like this with my fingernails. And you say, well, why do you do that? Well, because I'm cheap. I don't want to keep buying carbon paper, and sometimes when you use the same piece and you try to go over some of those lines that you've already used under this, it doesn't transfer. But if I do this, it will transfer enough to do it again and again, and maybe I get 4 or 5 uses or whatever out of this. It'll last me longer. Anyway, that's just a side note. Give me just a moment, I'll be right back. We'll set up for the next step. Okay, I'm back. So what I did here is you have your outline drawn. I'm using these stencil letters. Now you can print out fonts on your computer. You can do the same thing, and you can just cut them, lay them on here, and trace them out with carbon paper. This was just a little bit easier for me to do. And if you do get the letters, like I showed you in one of the previous videos, I use Marsh ink. So this is all I do here, is spurts. Don't go crazy with this. You don't need to paint the board. You're just outlining these letters, and you want to hit it at different angles, because you want to make sure you get on all the little nooks, crannies, what have you. And I'll show you why in just a sec. It almost looks pretty good right there. Now I give this a few seconds to dry, and then I'm going to take them off of here. And what I do, I use a paper towel with gloves on, and I use mineral spirits, turpentine, whatever, and I wipe my letters all down real quick before I put them away. That way they're clean for the next time I use them. You don't have to do that, but after a while this stuff builds up on them and it can start to distort them a little. This way I keep them all clean and crisp, and when I take them off like this, okay, start to see what I wrote on here. Give it a few seconds, I'll be right back. We'll go from just there. As a side note, if you don't want to wipe them down individually after every use, what I do is I just throw them in this little bin, put a little turpentine in there. I kind of, I don't know, rub them around a little bit every few minutes. Pretty soon it takes all that black stuff off. You can kind of see it's turning black in here. So if you wanted to, you could just throw, these are letters that I've used. Just throw them in there. And let them soak, rub them around, wipe them off with your, I don't know, I use these blue shop towels. I get them cheap sometimes at a lot of different places, so it's whatever you want to do. everything that's black. Every once in a while I just throw them all in there. I look at them, see which ones I've been using, and say, well, okay, let's just throw them in there and let's just get them all cleaned up at once. Turpentine's not that expensive. There we go. Alright, be right back. Okay, I was playing around here a little bit, and a friend of mine that wanted me to do this sign said, hey, notch the corners. So look at my previous video. I show you how to make a real simple jig on your drill press. Set it up. I notched these corners, all 4 of them all the way around. Now, instead of putting like a chamfer all the way around, this time I'm going to set my router and my router bit. I've got one that there's a multitude of different edging bits that you can buy. I've got one that's I believe it's about a 1/4 round. So I'm going to hit all around these corners with that. It'll take me just a couple of minutes, and you can look at my previous video. Like I said, I just secure it to the edge of my table, and I go around it with my router. It's quick, fast, gives you an edge. Then we'll go from there. I'll be right back. One other side note on cleaning those letters. I use either primer black or that marsh ink. I don't use paint. I don't know if I would do that. It might be a lot harder to try cleaning those letters. Anyway, moving on. So what I did is I used that 1/4 round bit now, and I went all the way around this, and I put a rounded edge all the way through, including the cutoffs. So what I'm going to do next, we're going to set up the detail bit on my small palm router, which I'll show you in just a sec. And I'm going to outline, well, maybe we'll do these inset. We'll think about that, and we'll make a decision here in a little bit on this, and then we're going to carve out this. First thing I always go for is I go for my palm router, or I try to do as much of the detail work as I can before I go to the larger router for doing the field work, which is all out in here, or sometimes in here, depending on if we do inset or outset. So we'll set it up. We'll be back in a minute. We'll make some decisions, and we'll go for it. This is just for fun. You don't have to do any of this in any particular order. So comments I get off of the forum say, oh, you're supposed to do it like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, and I'm like, that's a bunch of hogwash. This is something you're having fun with. I don't care what you do, if you do it out of step or whatever, just as long as you end up with a sign that you're happy with, or you end up with a design that you're happy with in the end. I mean, this is all about having fun and a good time. You're not in production, so don't worry about it. All right, let me set up. I'll be right back. Okay, I got the palm router out. It's my DeWalt, my 611. I got my wrench. I set the tip of that point to the top of that wrench. It's a down, dirty, quick way of setting it up. I'm ready to go. Now, the decision that we made in this, we definitely want the figurine here of the lady taking the bath to be outset where it's coming up. So I'm going to go around this with this detail bit all the way around it. And one way you can do is I use this little triangular piece, and what I do is I stick it right up in here, screw it into the table. That'll hold this real secure. So just take the drill. That's it. This isn't going anywhere. It'll hold it real steady. Now I'm going to go around this. I'll show you a real quick beginning. I have my speed set all the way up. It's a speed control on here. Okay, I'm back. I went around and I outlined with that detail bit this lady sitting in the bathtub, and I took out some of the areas I didn't think I'm going to be able to get to with the bigger router. And it's okay if you forget, because you can always swap and go back and forth with your bits, or if you got 2 routers. Then we decided, hey, we're going to make the letters outset, and we'll make her outset, and then the field will do circles and curly cues, and we'll make the peaks and valleys all the way around it. So we started here, and you see where I went around it with my detail. Now, here's the thing. I move around a lot on this sign. Figure out where you're comfortable at when you do this. Your letters will come out better. Don't try to overreach or to cut an area that you can't quite see or anything like that. There's no rules here for the minute. Just lift up the router, move your position, turn around and start your cut again. And I went all the way around this, and on some of these I went around it a couple of times because I don't want to get up so close that I nick these letters when I use that 90-degree V-groove bit, which we'll switch over to in a little bit. Right now I'm going to finish outlining the rest of these letters, and I'll be back, and then I'll show you what we'll do. We'll create some kind of pattern or clouds or something, and then we'll go to the big router. Okay, so I'll be back with you in a minute. We're back, and I went around all these letters now with that detail bit. So what I'm going to do now is I've got so much junk all over this, and pencil marks of thinking about what we wanted to do. I'm going to go over this with my belt sander. I'll set it up. I'll show you in real time. It takes 2 seconds. I have an 80 grit belt on there. It'll take this down to a very clean surface. Then we'll lay out how we want to do the field part of it. Okay, one moment. I have my Makita belt sander set up. We're going to go with the grain. I'm going to do this real quick. That's it. I'm going to hit it with a blowgun. Okay, now we'll take a look at how we want to do the layout. Let me switch this over. Let's zoom in. We'll zoom in on what we've done so far. Okay, this is a little bit of a zoom in shot, so I'm going to pause this for a minute while we think about how we want to carve out that field, because we want to get close to this edge but not go over it. So, give me 1 sec, we'll sketch it out and I'll tell you what we decided. Hang on. Okay, we're back. What we decided to do, just to make it quick and easy, I used a cap off of one of these spray cans. I set it about like that, close to the edge but not all the way, and we just went around it. So that'll create like this little tiny bit of an edge, not much, and the rest of this will all be, you know, carved out. Now, if that's too close to the edge, you could always have brought this cap in more and done the same thing. The reason why we did it that way is these letters are getting close to this edge, so we thought to make it look right and a little more uniform, well, we would try to do it that way. So we'll set up the big router now and we'll start doing all this field stuff. And we'll go from there with the finish. Okay, we'll be back in a minute. Okay, so I hooked up my big 618 router, set the bit the same way with the wrench like I showed you. And I turned around and I did some of this right here. And instead of making where the circles meet sharp, I made them slightly rounded. Looks a little bit better, looks a little bit more like a cloud, I suppose. And then I went in, testing, cut all this out, peaks, valleys. I've still got some cleanup here, and we've still got some detail cleanup to do when we're done. But what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to do this whole field. Then I'll come back and I'll show you how we'll start cleaning up this stuff and getting it ready for Okay, we're back, and I carved out now. You can see all this field. Carved it out. I zoomed in a little bit. Okay, so you say, well, what do we do next? Well, we're going to get out these 2 tools. Remember, you asked me to keep it simple. I got a screwdriver, an old one that I made a curved, like knife blade with my grinder. And I have just a standard ice pick. Dollar store special. Okay, this was junk, sharpened it up. Use what you got. Why not? So, I'm going to go around and you'll see, like up in here, there's like this really jaggedy edge, and some of this doesn't look good, and I don't want to put the finish on it until I have everything kind of cleaned up. So we'll go around this. I'll show you real quick down. Oh, let's go over here. Along here, this edge. Okay, so I just take the screwdriver, drag it along, and it gets all this crap up. I go in through here, these little holes. I don't want to get in there with my router, it's too big. Even with it doesn't matter if it's a 60 or 90 degree. So I just use this, cleans it up real well, come around with your feet, It takes just a couple of minutes to go around the whole sign and clean it up. So I saw something posted on one of the forums. I don't want to criticize, I'm not going to mention names. The guy did a sign and he just routed it out real quick, and I'm sure that he thought, you know, hey, this is great. Maybe it was his first time. That's the reason why I said I don't want to criticize him. When you get to this point, you need to stop, take a deep breath, get out your little finishing tools or whatever you want to use. You can use a chisel, whatever, and clean this up. You want everything looking really, really sharp now and really clean. What's the difference between an okay finish and an absolutely fantastic finish? The answer is just a little bit more time. So we're going to spend a little bit more time. We're going to clean this, and then we're going to sand it, and we're going to spend time in those two stages, because then when we apply the finish, as long as we apply it correctly, it's going to come out fantastic. You don't want it mediocre. You've spent a lot of time and put a lot of energy into it to get it up to this point. Okay, I'm going to pause. Okay, I wanted to show you this while cleaning up. And like I said, this is a sharp screwdriver with a point on it right here. Okay, hit this letter, around this letter too hard, and it busted it off, and you go, oh my God, now what are we going to do? Because glue will take all this time, and I don't know if I can glue it. And so you go down to the dollar store, and for $1 a pack, you can get CA glue. I happen to have a larger container of it, but it's the same stuff. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put a little drop on there, and then I'm going to set it right back on there. Try to, without bonding my fingers together like I damn near did. Now the glue's gotten too hard. Alright, so we're just going to set it in there like that, back like it was. Okay, and voila. I'll show you how to fix this little puddle later. Right now, it's glued up. We'll go back to cleaning it up, and we'll move on from there. Give me just a sec. But that's a quick way to repair it. You just want to be careful. I try not to get stuff into this area because this is a son of a gun to disguise. But I'll show you how we're going to do that. Back to cleaning it up. I'll be back with you in a minute. Okay, time's gone by. I've got it set up. What I'm going to do now is we're going to use this Marsh ink again. I could use any kind of black. It doesn't matter. It's just that I've got plenty of cans of this stuff. So we're going to spray all along these edges. Then I'm going to do the inside in and around these letters. I'm not going to do the whole thing because we're going to do some more of that coloring on this. So let's bring it out. Now, I haven't sanded it yet either. There's a reason. I'll show you. Alright, that's good enough. We're going to let this dry. I'll be right back. Okay, here we are back. And so what I did is I set up my little Badger sprayer, the one I told you I bought on Amazon, and I put some red in it. And this time I'm using alcohol to put those little drops in, but you don't have to. You can wipe this on with a rag. You could use a brush. You could do a whole bunch of different ways. I'm just choosing to use the airbrush because a friend of mine wanted to play with it. So I put alcohol in the little Badger, which is right here, and I probably use way too much. And it's thin. So when it's thin, you just simply give it more coats, and because this is alcohol in here, this stuff will dry like in 2 seconds. And you can keep spraying. So I want to hit now everything. You're watching me do this in real time. And you want to get it at different angles. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to do another coat on this of a different color. And I did this in another video. friend of mine liked it a lot, said, hey, when we do my sign, I want to do it the same way. And that's fine. Remember, you can do this any way you want to. You want to look at this at different angles, because sometimes the spray doesn't get everywhere it should. Don't worry if you get too much in one area or too much in another area. You can always use like 320, 400 grit and lightly sand this with your random orbital, and you can get the finish back to where it's all even. But if you take your time with the little badger, not a problem. Just like this. Well, we're starting to run out. Yes, we are. And that's okay. We're going to mix up another color. We'll spray it in real time. I'll be with you in just a moment. Okay, I was just looking at the forum off of my computer in the shop here, and somebody said, hey, each one of these, I mean, how much trans tint are you putting in there? I put in about 12, 14 drops, sometimes 10. It doesn't matter because I make them light, and then I just keep adding coats, and I just fade my way in and out of whatever I'm spraying. So it's kind of up to you. If you're using wipe-on stains, you can't control them that way, but like I said, you can always lightly sand it. There are different things that you can do. We'll do that in the future. Right now, back to this. This is yellow. And it's mixed with the alcohol. I'm doing the border a few times all the way around. I want to see before I go into the project. He wants that antique-y kind of a look. I think that this will do it. Remember, if it doesn't and you don't like how this turns out, except for these peaks and valleys in here that I'm spraying, you can sand down the rest of this, the lettering. You can sand back down the character that you did, your sign. Okay, so I'm not done spraying it yet. I got a little heavier in the outline. Okay. It's not going to show up over the black, but it will on everything else. That's what I want it to do. Okay, I'll be back in a minute. Even though it's alcohol, I'm still going to give this a little bit of drying time. Then we'll come back and we'll go from there with the finish. I might put a few more coats of this amber yellow on there. We'll decide after it dries. I'll be back. Okay, so we're done with the spraying. I'm letting this dry. It'll be dry in a matter of seconds. You can move right on into your top coat finish because we used alcohol. I'm going to set it right here. What I'm going to use is I'm going to use the same as I've always been using, which is the Rust-Oleum right there. The Rust-Oleum 2x Ultra Clear Gloss. Stuff's about as much, like I said, as the other stuff. I like using it. So I'm going to put a coat on here and I'll be right back, and then we'll finish this thing out. Okay, I'm back. This turned out really good. I've put 3 coats so far of the clear gloss. I'll probably put another 2 more, and then I'll let him decide if he wants to put a little chain to eye hooks up here, or you know, if they just want to hang it another way. There's a couple different, well, there's several different ways you can hang them. You know, you can put a little bracket on the back, drive a nail into the wall, hang it on the bracket. Lots of different ways that you can mount and hang these. But, okay, this is it. I hope this answered your question on how to quick and easily do something with carbon paper. That's what I do. It works. Take the carbon paper off, take your time, go back over the lines, put in any details you want, add to it, take away from it. Just look at that template as just a boilerplate, and you can add and do whatever you want to it, or you can add more things onto the wood just by tracing over them, including your fonts. Play around with your word processor, the size, the type of font you want, print them out, put it on the paper, trace over it. It's that easy, really. Okay, I want to thank everybody for watching. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Tell me what else you would like to see, and thank you very much. Bye-bye.